September 15th, 1941. 2:17 in the afternoon, North Atlantic Ocean, west of Ireland. The sea is gray and restless, rolling in long iron swells under a sky the color of wet cement. Wind lashes spray across the conning tower of the German submarine U-96. Diesel engines rumble deep in the hull. The boat smells of oil, sweat, and stale bread. On the bridge, Kapitan Lieutenant Heinrich Lehmann Willenbrock studies the horizon through binoculars. He is 29 years old. His eyes are sharp but tired. For days, the boat has stalked convoy lanes. Somewhere beyond that gray wall of mist, merchant ships move toward Britain. Somewhere out there, destroyers guard them. Below, in the control room, Chief Engineer Carl Hager wipes condensation from a pressure gauge. He listens to the rhythm of the engines the way a doctor listens to a heartbeat. Everything feels steady. For now. Then the lookout shouts, "Smoke to port, multiple columns." The bridge stiffens. Willenbrock lowers the binoculars. Thin black smears rise against the horizon. A convoy. Slow. Heavy. Valuable. He gives the order. "Alarm! Dive!" A klaxon wails through steel compartments. Men scramble down the hatch. Boots hammer on metal ladders. The bridge empties in seconds. The hatch slams shut. The ballast tanks flood with a roar like distant thunder. The deck tilts. The ocean swallows the hull. Inside, red lights glow. The world becomes narrow and close. Seawater presses against steel plates only centimeters thick. U-96 sinks to periscope depth. Through the scope, Willenbrock sees silhouettes, tankers, cargo ships, escorts weaving like sheepdogs. He calculates angles in silence. A torpedo solution forms in his mind. Tube 1. Fire. The boat shudders as the first torpedo leaves. Then a second. Then a third. Minutes pass. Then a dull, distant boom. Another. A plume of water rises near a merchant hull. One ship slows. Another lists. But the escorts react instantly. In the sonar room of a British destroyer, a young operator hears the torpedo wakes. Orders echo. Engines rev. The hunter turns toward the source. Back inside U-96, the hydrophone operator stiffens. Fast screws approaching. Bearing 080. The destroyer is coming. Willenbrock does not hesitate. Dive, 100 meters. The boat angles down. The hull creaks softly as pressure builds. Men grip pipes overhead to steady themselves. Then comes the first depth charge. It detonates off the stern. The shock slams through the hull like a giant fist. Lights flicker. Dust rains from overhead pipes. Silence follows. A tight, breathless silence. Then a second explosion. Closer. Hager checks gauges. No leaks yet. He meets the captain eyes. They both know this is only the beginning. On the destroyer above, patterns are set. Charges roll from racks into the sea. Each one sinks, ticking invisibly downward before erupting. Inside the submarine, the third blast hits harder. A light bulb bursts. Someone curses. Another man whispers a prayer under his breath. You can feel it with them. The air thickens. Every sound matters. A dropped wrench could betray them. Silent running, Willenbrock orders quietly. Motors slow. Non-essential systems power down. The boat becomes a shadow suspended in black water. The fourth explosion lands almost directly overhead. The hull rings like a struck bell. Rivets groan. A seam in the forward compartment begins to seep water in thin, shining threads. 17 charges will fall before this ordeal ends. They do not know that yet. They only know that the ocean around them has turned violent. The fifth and sixth blasts come in quick succession. Men are thrown against bulkheads. The cook clutches a railing, his face pale as flour. Torpedoman Ernst Keller tastes blood where he has bitten his tongue. The hydrophone operator strains to hear through the roaring in his ears. Destroyer circling, still above us. The seventh charge detonates so close that the boat tilts sharply. Gauges jump. A pipe bursts in the forward compartment, spraying seawater across the deck. Hager crawls toward it, tools clutched in shaking hands. Above them, propellers churn. Below, at 100 meters, U-96 holds its breath. The eighth explosion rocks them again, and the hunt is just beginning. The ninth explosion does not sound like the others. It feels deeper, sharper, as if the sea itself is clenched around the hull. The lights go out. For a brief second, there is nothing but darkness and the echo of strained metal. Then emergency lamps flicker to life, painting the control room in dim red again. Faces look different under that light. Older, tight with effort. Chief Engineer Carl Hager forces himself upright. His ears ring. He tastes oil in the air. Somewhere forward, water drips steadily onto steel plates. Report, the captain says calmly. Calm is contagious. Panic is more contagious. Damage reports ripple back through narrow passageways. Minor leaks in the bow compartment. A cracked gauge. Batteries holding. Depth stable at 100 meters. Above them, the destroyer turns again. The hydrophone operator presses headphones tighter against his ears. He's 21 years old. His name is Dieter Baumann. This is only his second patrol. He hears the propellers sweeping wide, then narrowing. They are aligning again, he whispers. The 10th depth charge explodes closer than any before. The hull slams inward with a metallic groan. A locker bursts open. Tools scatter across the deck. One sailor falls hard, his shoulder striking a pipe. He does not cry out. No one does. Water sprays in a thin arc from the forward seam. Hager shouts for sealing compound. Men move quickly but carefully, sliding rather than running. Every sudden sound feels dangerous. On the destroyer above, patterns are calculated with cold precision. The British crew cannot see their target, but they know it is below. Somewhere in that black water, steel and men are hiding. The 11th charge detonates slightly aft. The stern jolts. A valve handle snaps off in a machinist mate hand. He stares at the broken metal for a heartbeat, then pushes it aside and reaches for another. The boat tilts 2 degrees down. Hager adjusts trim tanks with steady hands. Maintain depth, Willenbrock orders. He stands near the periscope well, fingers resting lightly on its brass housing. His expression does not change, but sweat beads along his temples. He knows what can happen at greater depths. Steel does not forgive mistakes. The 12th explosion feels like a hammer against the spine of the submarine. A seam in the battery compartment opens slightly. Acid fumes mix with seawater mist. The air grows sharp and sour. Men cover their mouths with sleeves. Dieter listens through the hydrophone. Between detonations, he hears something else. The destroyer screws shifting speed, slowing. They are searching wider, he says. That could mean they believe the submarine is damaged or sunk. Willenbrock nods once. Hold position. The 13th charge falls. It detonates off the port side, strong enough to knock a man against the torpedo racks. The racks hold. The torpedoes remain secured. For a moment, every man imagines what would happen if one did not. Hager reaches the forward leak. He presses sealing paste into the seam with bare fingers. The steel feels alive beneath his touch, vibrating from distant propellers. In the galley, the cook braces himself against a bulkhead. Pots swing silently on their hooks. He thinks of his wife in Hamburg, of a kitchen filled with sunlight. Here, there is only red light and the smell of metal. The 14th explosion is further away. Then silence. Not complete silence. There is always the hum of batteries, the faint whisper of circulating air. But compared to the violence before, it feels almost peaceful. Dieter listens carefully. I do not hear them directly above, he says. Minutes stretch. No one speaks unless necessary. Sweat runs down spines. The air grows warm and heavy. Oxygen slowly thins. Then, faint but distinct, the screws return. The destroyer is not finished. The 15th depth charge drops deeper before detonating. It erupts almost level with the hull. The shock throws men to the deck. One light shatters completely. A crack appears in a pressure gauge glass. A pipe joint splits, releasing a hiss of compressed air. For a terrible second, the hull emits a long, rising groan. Every man freezes. Steel can only bend so far. Hager checks depth, 103 meters. Safe, but not comfortable. Adjust trim. Bring her up 2 meters, he says quietly. Compressed air shifts between tanks. The boat responds slowly like a tired animal. Above them, the destroyer circles again. Charges are limited. Each one costs time and fuel. But the British captain believes he has wounded prey. The 16th explosion is less violent. It detonates farther aft. Maybe they have misjudged the position. Willenbrock studies the depth gauge. He makes a decision that feels like stepping onto thin ice. Descend to 120 meters. A murmur moves through the control room. That depth presses harder on the hull. Rivets strain. Seams whisper, but it might place them beneath the destroyer search pattern. The ballast tanks adjust. The boat sinks. At 120 meters, the ocean is absolute black. Pressure grips the hull like an iron hand. Then comes the 17th charge. It detonates above and slightly forward. The blast slams downward, but at this depth, the shock disperses just enough. The hull shudders violently. A rivet pops loose in the bow. Water sprays, then slows, and then nothing. No immediate follow-up. No tightening circle of propellers. Just the faint, fading churn of screws moving away. Dieter listens for a long time. His breathing is shallow. They are increasing distance, he finally says. Bearing 095, moving east. No one celebrates. Not yet. Willenbrock waits 5 full minutes, then 10. Only when the hydrophone confirms the destroyer is truly departing does he allow himself a small nod. Maintain silent running, he says. We remain here. Because in the Atlantic, hunters sometimes pretend to leave, and sometimes they return. They do not rise. Not after 10 minutes, not after 30. At 120 meters, U-96 hangs in the dark like a stone suspended by invisible thread. The electric motors hum at the lowest possible setting. Air grows thicker with every breath. Captain Lieutenant Heinrich Lehmann Willenbrock checks his watch. 3:15 in the afternoon. Only 1 hour has passed since the first explosion. It feels like a day. Hydrophone report, he says quietly. Dieter Baumann closes his eyes and listens. The sea speaks in layers. Distant propellers, a faint metallic echo, the low, endless pulse of the ocean itself. The destroyer is further east, he says, fading. Fading does not mean gone. Chief Engineer Carl Hager moves slowly through the forward compartment. He runs a hand along the patched seam. The sealing compound holds, but barely. Drops of seawater gather and fall with soft, steady taps. Each drop sounds enormous in the silence. In the torpedo room, Ernst Keller sits on a folded blanket between steel cylinders. He wipes sweat from his face with an oil-stained cloth. He tries to steady his breathing. He knows that oxygen levels are falling. Everyone knows. The air smells sour now. Diesel fumes cling to clothing. Acid from the battery compartment lingers faintly in the throat. You can almost feel the weight pressing down from above. Thousands of tons of cold Atlantic water, crushing inward. At 4 in the afternoon, Willenbrock gives a small order. Blow a short burst. Bring us to 110 meters. Compressed air hisses gently. The submarine rises 10 meters, easing pressure slightly. The hull responds with a low creak, like a ship settling at dock. Still no sign of renewed attack. Above them, somewhere beyond sight, the convoy continues westward. Damaged ships struggle to maintain formation. Escorts scan the sea. The war does not pause for one submarine. Inside U-96, time slows. Men speak in whispers. Movements are deliberate. Even a spoon against a tin cup feels too loud. In the radio room, the operator writes a brief coded entry into the log. No transmission. Emitting a signal would be suicide. In the galley, the cook distributes small pieces of dark bread. No one feels hungry, but eating keeps the mind steady. Water is rationed. Each swallow is measured. By 5 in the afternoon, condensation beads on every surface. Sweat trickles down backs. The air grows stale. Hager checks battery levels. They are draining steadily. Without surfacing to recharge with diesel engines, time underwater is limited. He approaches the captain. Batteries at 60%, he murmurs. Willenbrock nods once. We wait! Waiting is a weapon too. Dieter stiffens suddenly at his post. Contact, he whispers. Faint, possibly second vessel. The control room stills. He listens harder. The sound is distant, irregular. After long seconds, he exhales slowly. Negative. Likely merchant traffic far away. Tension eases, but only slightly. At 6 in the evening, 3 hours after the first depth charge, Willenbrock makes another careful adjustment. Ascend to 90 meters. The boat rises slowly. The hull crackles faintly as pressure decreases. Each sound makes men glance upward. 90 meters. Dieter listens again. Nothing close. The captain considers surfacing at dusk. Darkness would offer some protection. But Allied aircraft patrol these waters more frequently now. Radar is improving. The Atlantic is becoming less forgiving. At 7 in the evening, the air is heavy and hot. Carbon dioxide levels climb. A machinist wipes his eyes repeatedly. Another man leans against a bulkhead fighting a headache. You can sense the invisible clock ticking. Hager checks the patched seam again, still holding. But if another pattern of charges hits, he knows the damage could multiply quickly. Willenbrock studies the chart table under red light. He traces a gloved finger along the convoy route. They achieved at least 1 confirmed hit, perhaps 2, but the cost has been high, 17 depth charges. He thinks of steel thickness, of rivet strength, of men who depend on both. At 8 in the evening, twilight begins above the Atlantic. Down here, nothing changes, visually, but something shifts in the captain's posture. Prepare to ascend to periscope depth, he orders quietly. The boat rises in slow increments, 90 meters, 80, 70. Every man listens. At 60 meters, Dieter reports no immediate propeller noise nearby. At 40 meters, tension spikes again. This is a dangerous zone, shallow enough to be detected more easily, deep enough to be trapped if attacked again. Finally, at periscope depth, Willenbrock grips the handles and raises the slender tube. He rotates it slowly. Gray sea, rolling swells, fading light. No destroyer in sight. He scans again, turning the scope carefully. Nothing. For the first time in hours, he allows a slow breath. Surface, he says. Ballast tanks blow. The hull rises. The ocean peels away from steel. With a sudden rush of cool air, the hatch opens. Fresh wind pours inside, carrying the scent of salt and freedom. Men climb to the bridge in silence. The sky is streaked with purple and orange. The convoy is long gone. Behind them, the sea appears calm, as if nothing violent has happened. But inside U-96, the scars remain. Bent plates, strained rivets, exhausted faces, 17 depth charges. They survived. Tonight, fresh air does not erase what happened below. As U-96 rides the surface swells that evening, the crew moves like men who have aged in a single afternoon. Salt wind cools their faces, but their eyes remain fixed on the horizon. Captain Lieutenant Heinrich Lehmann Willenbrock stands on the bridge, binoculars raised again. The ocean looks innocent in twilight. Long dark waves roll under a fading sky. But he knows better. The Atlantic does not forget. Diesels ahead slow, he orders. Below, engines roar back to life. The vibration returns through steel decks. Batteries begin to recharge. The boat smells once more of fuel and machinery. Chief Engineer Carl Hager oversees inspections under bright white lights. He runs careful hands along bulkheads. He taps suspect plates with a wrench, listening for hollow weakness. In the forward compartment, the patched seam still weeps faintly. Not dangerous, not yet. He orders reinforcement braces installed. The men work quietly, focused, almost tender with the damaged steel. Ernst Keller helps tighten bolts around torpedo racks. He feels the slight misalignment where the blast shifted the frame. It is subtle, but it is there. 17 charges. He repeats the number silently as if counting steps in a long march. Just after midnight, the sea turns darker. A thin moon hides behind racing clouds. Visibility drops. On the bridge, the lookout stiffens. Light to starboard. Low, moving. Willenbrock swings the binoculars. A faint glow on the horizon. Then another. Possibly a lone straggler from the earlier convoy. Possibly something else. He studies the rhythm of the lights. They seem steady, not sweeping like a destroyer searchlight. Course 210, he says. We will investigate. U-96 changes direction, slicing quietly through black water. Below deck, tension returns. Every encounter now feels sharper. After surviving hours of bombardment, nerves are thinner. Dieter Baumann listens again through headphones, even while surfaced. He hears only the steady pulse of their own engines and distant surf. As they close the distance, the silhouette becomes clearer. A single merchant vessel trailing slightly behind a larger formation. Perhaps damaged, perhaps cautious. Willenbrock lowers the binoculars. Prepare to submerge. No celebration, no speeches, just routine. The hatch seals, ballast tanks flood. The boat slips beneath the surface once more. At periscope depth, the captain studies the target carefully. No escort visible nearby. Solution ready, Ernst reports softly. The tension now is different from the earlier chaos. It is controlled, focused. Fire. The torpedo leaves with a muted jolt. Minutes stretch. Through the periscope, Willenbrock sees the impact. A flash along the hull of the merchant ship. Smoke. A slight list. He lowers the scope immediately. Dive. 70 meters. Experience has taught them not to linger. They descend. For several long minutes, there is nothing. Then faintly, Dieter hears something that tightens his chest. Propellers. Fast. Bearing 060. Not one. Two. Escort vessels. Responding to the explosion. Willenbrock does not hesitate. Dive to 100 meters. Silent running. The crew moves with practiced precision now. Fear still exists, but it is controlled. They have endured worse today. Above, engines roar. The escorts close in. The first new depth charge detonates farther away than the earlier pattern. The hull trembles, but not violently. Still, the memory of the previous 17 lingers in every man-mind. The second charge is closer. Hager grips a pipe overhead. He feels the vibration travel through metal and bone. This time, the blasts are fewer. The escorts may not have a firm contact. They are reacting quickly, perhaps without precise sonar. 3 charges fall, then silence. Dieter listens hard. The screws pass overhead, then widen. They are sweeping past, he whispers. No one relaxes. 10 minutes pass. 20? No further explosions. The escorts continue on, likely drawn back toward the convoy. Inside U-96, shoulders lower slightly, but the message is clear. There will be no safe patrol, no quiet triumph. Every attack invites retaliation. Every success brings hunters. Later that night, when they surface again under heavy clouds, Willenbrock stands alone for a moment at the edge of the bridge. He looks at the dark Atlantic stretching in every direction. He thinks of the 17 charges earlier, of the steel that held, of the men who did not break under pressure. But he also knows that many other boats have not been so fortunate. The Battle of the Atlantic is not a single clash. It is a long, grinding test of endurance. Ships vanish into cold water. Crews on both sides wait in tension beneath gray skies. For U-96, the patrol continues. Fuel remains. Torpedoes remain. And somewhere beyond the horizon, more escorts are searching. Dawn breaks pale and cold over the Atlantic. It is September 16th, 1941. Just after 5 in the morning. U-96 rides low in the water, diesel engines rumbling steadily. The sea has calmed. Long swells roll under a washed-out sky. For a moment, it looks almost peaceful. Inside the boat, exhaustion settles into bones. Some men sleep where they sit. Others lean against bulkheads, eyes closed but not fully resting. Every sudden vibration still feels like the beginning of another attack. Chief Engineer Carl Hager moves quietly through the compartments, clipboard in hand. He notes bent brackets, hairline cracks, a rivet missing near the bow. The boat survived, but it carries invisible stress in every seam. He pauses at the patched leak. The reinforcement brace holds firm. The steel is scarred and scratched, but it endured. He runs a hand along the plate with something close to respect. Steel can fail, but sometimes it does not. On the bridge, Captain Lieutenant Heinrich Lehmann-Willenbrock studies the horizon again. He has not slept. Salt dries against his collar. His face is pale beneath the wind. He knows that one patrol does not decide the war, but survival decides whether a crew will see another. He thinks about the 17 depth charges, each one calculated to crush, to force surrender, to end the hunt. Each one a reminder that under the ocean, there are no spectators, only pressure and silence. Below deck, Dieter Baumann removes his headphones for the first time in hours. His ears still ring faintly. He flexes stiff fingers. When he closes his eyes, he hears echoes of explosions. Ernst Keller sits beside a torpedo rack, polishing a scuffed metal surface that does not need polishing. His hands move automatically. His thoughts are somewhere else. He remembers the moment the hull groaned at 120 meters, the rising metallic cry that seemed to stretch forever. He had imagined the ocean pouring in. He had imagined darkness. Instead, the steel held. Around mid-morning, a coded signal arrives from command. Short, precise. Continue patrol in assigned grid. Convoy routes remain active. There is no mention of their ordeal. No dramatic praise. No record yet of 17 charges survived. War at sea rarely pauses to acknowledge individual endurance. Willenbrock reads the message twice. Then he folds it carefully. Set course is ordered, he says. The boat turns. Hours pass without incident. Men rotate through short rest periods. Coffee is brewed thick and bitter. The cook prepares a simple meal. Conversation begins to return in low voices. Someone quietly counts the explosions from memory. 17, he says. Another nods. 17 charges. Hours beneath crushing water. Leaks sealed by hand. Breath measured in stale air. And yet the boat still moves. By late afternoon, clouds gather again. The Atlantic resumes its restless gray expression. The crew prepares for another night of hunting. But something inside them has shifted. They have felt the ocean try to break them. They have heard steel protest and survive. You can sense it in the way they move now. Quieter, sharper. A little more aware of how thin the line is between existence and absence. In later months of the war, Allied anti-submarine tactics will improve further. Radar will sharpen. Escort groups will coordinate more effectively. Aircraft will close gaps over the mid-Atlantic. Many submarines will not return from patrol. But on this September day in 1941, U-96 continues forward. Its hull bears the memory of 17 concussions. Its crew carries the memory in their nerves. As dusk approaches again, the captain gives a final order before night operations. Maintain discipline, maintain silence. Simple words. Below the surface, survival depends on both. The Atlantic stretches vast and indifferent around them. Somewhere beyond sight, destroyers scan the sea. Merchant ships push onward toward distant ports. The struggle continues, measured not only in sinkings or victories, but in endurance. Steel plates only centimeters thick separate men from crushing depth. Silence separates life from detection. On this patrol, silence won. U-96 disappears once more beneath darkening water. Engines shifting to electric hum, hull slipping into black. The ocean closes overhead, and the hunt goes on.